Please join me in welcoming Mayor Michael Tubbs.
Well, let me start by complimenting you all on your hats. I've been distracted this whole ceremony reading all the motivational quotes. So if I steal some of them in this speech, thank you. And with that, I say to the platform party, to the faculty, to the maintenance workers who put these chairs out for us, to the staff, the folks that made our food, and the folks that clean up after us every day, and to our parents, our aunts, our uncles, our grandparents, our cousins, our brothers and sisters, today is about you all. So thank you. It's an absolute honor to stand here today because just 5 years ago, I remember standing on stage for graduation. My mom, she had me when she was a teenager, so college wasn't an option for her. She had to go to work immediately after graduating. My father's been incarcerated my entire life, so his first exposure to higher education was behind bars. So I had the same pride, the same sense of accomplishment you all have, standing on the stage as a first-generation college student. I remember the night before with all our friends, and we were so excited we were graduating. I went on this rant, and I said, your bills will be paid, and your kids won't be hungry, and your bills will be paid, and feeling that the struggles of the past would be left behind. But today, I want to spend a little bit of time in talking about what being a first-generation college student or what being a college graduate didn't mean. My degree did not mean I was better than those I grew up with. It just meant I was better equipped to serve in some ways and to advocate. My degree did not mean I was better than my father who's in prison or my mother who had me as a teenager. It just meant I was better prepared to make their lives easier. And the same to you. You're smart, you're brilliant, you're talented, but your degree does not mean you can only think about yourself and making money. It means that you have a precious gift that you must use to make money for sure, but also to make sure our world and our communities are more just and inclusive spaces. Given the society we live in, oh, y'all like that? Thank you. So I'm going to start this speech by saying I am so proud of each and every one of you, but there's a temptation to feel too special, to feel too unique, to feel better. And as the first, you should never want to be the only, but you must reject exceptionalism and figure out how to make sure that your cousins and your siblings and your children will never have to be a first, and that you're doing all you can to lift as you climb. And today is absolutely one of the highlights of your life. So the second thing I want to talk about is that the fact that most days in life probably won't be like this. So let's enjoy, let's have fun, but I want to spend the rest of my time talking about what to do with valley experiences. Because today's a mountaintop, we're at the peak. We've had a hard climb, we've stayed up late, we took 5-hour energies and Starbucks off the yin yang, and it's called the grill, right? You were telling me, Teresa, the grill, it's at the grill doing your work. So it's a highlight. But I want to talk about what happens in the valley experiences, what happens in the low points of life. Because I think the lessons I've learned in those experiences explain why I'm on this stage today. So 8 years ago, I was an intern in the White House, the other White House. I was an intern in the White House. And my job was to work with mayors and councils nationwide. On Halloween of that day, I was walking in, doing my news clips, and I got a call from my mother. She called and told me my cousin had been murdered at a house party. And then I remember crying, I remember leaving work, I remember being very upset and angry. I remember being angry at God, being angry at the city of Stockton, being angry, I felt powerless, and what was the point of being at Stanford? What was the point of being in the White House? What was the point of all these accomplishments if my own family was back home dying literally? So that was absolutely a valley experience. That was a low point. But in that low point, I found something I want to share with you all. That oftentimes in pain, you can find your purpose. Oftentimes the things we go through, the things we fail at, the things we don't do as good at, that's where purpose is found. And I say that because when my cousin was murdered, that's when I decided I would come back to Stockton and run for office. I decided it'd be one thing to talk about the issues, it'd be one thing to tweet about the issues, it'd be one thing to be angry about the issues. But if I had a college degree, if I had all this year of learning and training and investment in me, who would I be not to try to do something? Not saying I had all the answers, not saying I knew it would even work, but I'm saying that in that valley experience, I found purpose. So I say to you graduates on one of the mountaintop days in your life, that when you have valley experiences, use those as times to really reflect. And oftentimes you'll find great purpose from your pain. And in the words of the great philosopher 50 Cent, he said, he said, sunny days wouldn't feel special if it wasn't for rain. And joy wouldn't feel so good if it wasn't for pain. This moment we're here today with would mean nothing if it was easy to get here. If all you had to do was show up as a freshman, write one paper, say your name and graduate, we wouldn't be here. But this day holds meaning and holds purpose because it was hard. It was a struggle. It was a climb. And sometimes there were low points. And that's what makes the high points like today so special. The second story around turning these valley experiences to mountaintop ones was my senior year. So after my cousin was murdered, I was like, you know what, I'm running for Stockton. I'm going to come back to Stockton one day. And I thought to do that, I needed to get a fellowship called the Rhodes Fellowship. So I spent all summer, all fall preparing. And raise your hand if you prepared for something really hard and you didn't get it. Like you thought it was yours, you were working on it, and that happened to me. And I remember getting that rejection and crying because I felt that I had found my purpose in my pain. I was going to do this great thing, and I needed this fellowship to do this. But what I found in that experience is that oftentimes rejection is a great time for reflection and redirection. I'll say that one more time. Oftentimes rejection is a great time for reflection and redirection and recalibration. I used to be a rapper, you guys, so that's all right. And in that moment, I was able to really dig deep and figure out what was it that I wanted to do. So at first I thought that meant a door had closed, but in actuality it was a door opening. It was a door saying that, you know what, you don't have to wait 4 years or 8 years to run for office at home. You can run right now. So after that rejection, which I thought I needed 3 or 4 years and then come back to Stockton, after the rejection, I decided to go back and run. And again, that came from a low point. So as we celebrate the highs, I want to make sure we think about how do we use the lows to get us to the next highs in our life. For example, Dr. King gave this famous speech where he said he had been to the mountaintop. But he only had been to the mountaintop because he was out in the valley. Before he went to the mountaintop, he was beaten in Birmingham. Before he was at the mountaintop, he was defeated in Albany, Georgia. Before he went to the mountaintop, he was in a Birmingham jail. And the sum total of all those low experiences prepared him to take advantage of the visions and the sights and the opportunity for once he got to the top. And there's a quote I love, and I think it fits for us in the Central Valley. And it says, they tried to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds. And when I think of that quote, I think of graduates like Tamika Attaway. Tamika Attaway is a single mother of 2, now a Stan State grad. Her mother had 2 strokes while finishing up her last semester. They tried to bury you, Tamika, but they didn't know you were a seed. In the Central Valley, the president laid out all the different challenges, from the high concentration of poverty, higher concentrated here than any other part in the state, from the low educational attainment to, in some communities, the high rates of violence And despite that, it tried to bury you, but didn't know you were seeds from the sacrifices of your parents and your grandparents to watch kids and to drive you an hour if you're from Stockton to Turlock campus. All these different ops, working 2 or 3 jobs, not knowing how you're gonna pay tuition, maybe not doing the best things with your refund checks, all those things. I was in college too. All those things tried to bury you, but they didn't know you were seeds. And that's what we're here today to celebrate. The fact that you were planted. That the fact that, like Tupac said, that roses can grow from concrete. So as I prepare to close, one last story. Around the same, a lot of things happened right before I was going to graduate. So the last story from around that time was I went on the Freedom Rides with the original Freedom Riders. And we went through the South to places I never want to go again, like Anniston, Alabama, but we were traveling, and one Freedom Rider, he said something that sticks with me to this day and I want to leave you with. He said, Michael, I was arrested at 21 years old. I was a senior at UCLA. You're good too. I was arrested on August 4th, 1961. And then he said, why is that day important? And I said, well, you were arrested. If you weren't arrested, I wouldn't be on this bus or in college, so thank you. And he rolled his eyes and he looked at me and he said, on that day, Barack Obama was born. And then he said he had no idea that the choice he made as a 21-year-old would pave the way so that 50 years later, a child born with no opportunity will have the chance to be president. Then he looked at me and said, what are you prepared to do today with your degree, with your experiences, with the lessons you've learned from your Valley experiences, so that 50 years later, a child has more opportunity today than he is currently born with? And graduates, that's the challenge for us today. Again, he said at 21 years old, he had no idea that the choice he made to get on the bus, to fight to make our communities and our nation more just and inclusive would pave the way so that 50 years later, a child born with no opportunity will have the chance to be president. And he looked at me like I'm looking at you, and he said, what are you prepared to do, Stand State Warriors, so that 50 years from now, more than 18% of folks in your community have a college degree? What are you prepared to do today, Stand State Warriors, so 50 years from now, no one else in your family has to say they're the first to go to college? What are you prepared to do today, Stand State Warriors, so 50 years from now, immigrants and folks in our community don't feel unsafe in being part of our community? What are you prepared to do today, Stand State, so that 50 years from now, we're still not having conversations about the inherent human worth and dignity of everybody? What are you prepared to do today, armed with your degrees, with your experiences, with support from faculty and family? What are you prepared to do with this great opportunity? Because right now, not many of us get that. Thank you.